Alright, Subcourse EN0053 Edition 7, Carpentry 3, Army Institute Professional Development, Army Correspondence Course Program. Alright, Introduction, Lesson 1, Cabinet Work, 2, Prefabricated Buildings, 3, Heavy Timber Construction, 11 credit hours allowed. Exercises. Lesson 2, Prefabricated Lessons, Cabinet work, prefabricated, chapter 1, cabinet work, chapter 2, prefabricated buildings, chapter 3, heavy construction, chapter 4, sawmill operation. Alright, cabinet work. Alright, cabinet work. In a job as an Army carpenter, you will build many cabinets. Cabinet building is a precision job performed inside the shop throughout. Although much of the work is done in the location for the cabinets to be installed, the cabinet should be well designed, structurally sound, and pleasing to appearance. Look at some of the cabinet work you try to recall with the appearances. Some of the kitchen cabinets that have you seen? Do they make good as usable space? Do they fit and latch tightly out of the shelf with the strong and the joints tight? Do the cabinets look like they were done in the craftsmanship? The chapter is devoted to the materials method applied with achieve the goals. We will cover the type of the characters would use the cabinet work. Some of the softwoods of the white pine and fir and cedar redwood. Some of the hardwoods of the walnut, mahogany, oak. Of course, the grades and standing of the hardwood and plywood will also be covered. We will discuss some of the joints used with the cabinet work with parallel grain joints, right angle the grain joints, groove joints, miter joints, mortises, tenon joints, deep dovetail joints, butt joints. Remember the good joint one is the well made with the foot properly. The types of the cabinets that will make will be one of 3 types: frame, stole, box. The step-by-step procedure will be given in the construction of each of these items. For the study of each of the section carefully, try to apply where you learn with the cabinet projects. 1-1 cabinet making with the characteristics of the wood which are concerned with the different from some of the characteristics of wood which are concerned with the dealing with the frame construction. For example, the cabinet making beauty and finishing quality of determining the factors rather than strength. Many beautiful hardwoods are strong, being strong naturally beautiful, and they covered with the cabinet work. 1-2 the almost impossible to discuss the detailed woods with the cabinet construction. However, we were primarily concerned with the woods which are in common use. 1-3 in the section we will discuss the type of the woods with the cabinet with the characteristics of each of the type. After study of the characteristics, you should be able to identify select the proper wood for the particular job. 1-4 the most desirable wood for the cabinet should be A. Have the ability to keep the shape without shrinking, warping, or swelling. B. Be easily work with the loads and tools in the machinery without causing rough surfaces. C. Be strong and suitable grain characters for the pleasing of the eye. 1-5 softwoods. Many softwoods are used for the cabinet making, along with the white pine of the most of it useful and always easy to work with because of the uniform grain holds the shape well, while the pine and soft light and medium strength. It splits easy by the hold of the nails fairly well. It also takes glue well. The grain is not prominent, therefore no particular beauty for the reason with coupled with the ability to hold paint. It's most often painted. 1-6 furs come from three well-known species: the Douglas yellow fir and the red fir. Difficult for the work with the hand tools because of the split easily as glue will not hold paint. Therefore, usually treated with a preservative that is used extensively to make and apply with the mill work, boat building, and shingle manufacturing. Alright, 1-7. The cedar comes with a variety of species that makes it difficult to cover each of the details. However, we'll discuss some of the general characteristics of the sapwood, generally white, and the heartwood being reddish-brown. Alright, dull brown with sometimes turning with the lavender tinge for the cedar known as the pungent odor with the precisely bitter taste. It's a light softwood, lower strength that does not bend easily. However, it works well to finish with a smooth taste like paint. Glues well, though it will split with easily. Cedar has a high resistance to decay, uniform, the texture very knotty. After it's seasoned, it will keep the shape used with the liner of the closet and cedar's chest, etc. because of the moth repellent action. It is also used with the millwork and novelties and furniture. 1-8 red work and the soft odorless, straight, even grain softwood coarse with the texture light and white. It works well with the tools and hold glue paint with it exceptionally well. Redwood shrinks with very little, but it keeps the shape after the season and resembles the cedar with the color, most coarse texture, and the use with the building, the construction, millwork, gardens, feature, furniture, and novelties. Shingles hardwood. Hardwoods are used extensively with the fine furniture cabinets. The strength, the plus of the beauty, and the ability to take the clear varnish if the varnish is lacking to make the ideal for the finished product for the cabinet. There are many types of the hardwoods, however, they will cover the principal ones. Walnut, one of the behinds for the cabinet woods, with the grain of the pores, with very straight, with the irregularity of the walnut works well within this tool finish with the smoothly hard holds glue, stain well with the hard with the strong wood, easily identified with the dark Heartwood, usually extensively for plywood, veneers, and furniture. Mahogany is not native wood, therefore all the species imported main variety that come with Central America, the India with the hard strong wood. Hardness can vary with the species of the color, very shade with the general speaking the reddish with the brown with the mahogany is close to the very grain, causing the pleasing reflection of the light, usually chiefly with the fine furniture, plywood, panels, veneers, and interior finishes. 112. Oak is very hard with the strong wood with the two main species, the white and red. Usually it's carefully seasoned will warp and check it out with the once the work is finished with the revival, the strength, the beauty. Oak excellently holds nail well, the finishes smoothly and holds glue satisfaction. The grain is coarse and porous, whereas quartz solved modular arrays are broad and numerous marking pleasing patterns. It takes the very stain very well, makes beautiful grain contrast. Is due from interior finishes, flooring, plywood, panels, veneers, and furniture. Oak, sometimes in the boat building where strength is required. 113. Hardwood grades and standards. We give the hardwood grains. If the standard is particularly important to the cabinet, will emphasize the important discussion. The standards are under the separate special heading. The standards are based on the amount of the clear, usable lumber in each of the piece material. Commonly called clear cutting must have the one side of the clear side and reverse side sound. It means that there must be no rot, shake, or other features present with it might be impair the strength of the wood. 114. The highest grade of hardwood in the first and the next second and first in the next grade, second and third grade is term select, followed by number 1, number 2, number 3. Common, but the grades following these may no means complete. There are numerous detailed special rules for certain species. However, if they keep the specifications mentioned above the mind, if you probable selecting general hardwoods to make it made easier. 115. Plywood. Today, plywood is used in thousands of the product average person comes in contact with it every day with the tool, with it used extensively in the cabinet work. Modern plywood consists of veneers that are fabricated with the glues. In simple terms, it consists of the 3 or more layers of the wood firmly glued together with the grain direction of the mid layer with the right angle with the outer layer. That means the fabrication, swelling, shrinking to reduce instability of the strength. Or added qualities would not be found in the original wood, original material. 117. Woods used for the cabinet works consists of very hardwood, softwood, plywoods. With selecting the materials in cabinets, you should select with the type of the best suited with the job you're doing. This is not used the highest grade of lumber, but the best grade for the plywood to construct the cabinet that is used to be storage. 118. Know that we've discussed some of the plywoods used for the cabinet works with their characteristics. Let's take some of the joints used in construction of the cabinet. Chapter 2. Joints used in cabinet making. Alright, joints used in cabinet making. Wood surfaces that are glued with must be soft, smooth and rough. Therefore, the glued working surface made with the machine mark for the tip, the loose grain with the other surface irregularities that follow the instructions of the glue container. Another important point for the remember is the stronger the joint where the glue and wood are in. Cover contact everything entire. There are no air bubbles before material particles between the wood layers. Add the product with the cabinet maker is no stronger than the weakest joint. However, as well, remember that you need not to be a skilled perfectionist to produce a good joint. If you plan to work with visualize the various steps of the proper sequence, perform these steps at the base of your ability, best of your ability, you can succeed in making joints fit well and serve the purpose of the strong joint is one that is well fitted. 2-3. Many types of joints are used in woodworking. However, this section will discuss only the following classification pertaining to the cabinet making: parallel grain joints, right angled grain joints, lap joints, groove joints, miter joints, mortises, tenon joints, dovetail joints, and butt joints. 2-4. The section of the actual with the classification type of the joints covered at each of which rather than detailed description of how each of the joint was located and laid out and constructed. 2-5. The section specifies the type of the joints to determine the following factors: work and the qualities of the strength of the material that you use, whether the work of the exterior or the interior, whether the removal of the stationary project, how the project will be fastened or such nails are screwed and glued, and combination of these, whether the grain is parallel and right angles, whether they are joint or fastened. Alright, E, whether the fasteners are visible or concealed. 2-6, the classification, grain direction. In order to study the joint, let's just consider the classification pertaining to the grain direction made the means for the length of the face, the edge of the end of the board. 2-7, the parallel grain joints. Parallel grain joints are those with the grains that join the piece that runs for the same direction. The 2 types of such joints: the parallel edge joints, which are joined wood edgewise, and 2 parallel right angle joints, which are used in joining pieces of the wood so that their faces are right angles and they are to the grain of the parallel. 2.8. The right angle joints. Right angle joints of those in which the grain wood meets with the right angle when they are joined. The 3 type of the right angle to grain joints are edge to edge joints in which the end of the one member is fitted with the edge of the other member. 2 oblique joints which are grain with the member. Both members are fitted end to end. The end of the face of the joint with the end of the grain of one member of the joint, the face of the other member. And the plane miter joint shown in Figure 1b is a good example of an oblique right angle joint. 2.9. Classification construction detail will describe the main class of which into which the woodworking joint falls. Now let's say the joint classification regarding the construction detail. 2.10. Lap joints. Lap joints, simple lap, the halved and joint made of the coupling, cutting out one half of the equal section. Both of the members are jointed. There are simple joint variations of the lap joint. The half section is the cut from the end of the members of the B joint, jointed and cross section of the other than right angle joint, known as the end of the lap of the joint. The joint, as shown in Figure 2a, with the members cut across each over the right angled center of the joint, is called the cross lap joint, as is. Figure 1, 2, and 1a, end to joint. Figure 1 shows edge to edge, end to edge joints A, B, and C. Figure 2 shows end lap, cross lap, and middle lap. Illustrating Figure 2 with one of the lap joints joined with the other center of the shown Figure 2c with the joint with the dome with the mid lap joint with the 2 11 lap joints of the cabinet frame with the timber with the soft steel grade with the cabinet make of the lap the joint with the crossing connecting the cross rail with the side with the cabinets for the many other type of frames. Groove joints. Groove joints are those which are the groove of the reset of the cut into the member, either the grain across the dream, the top of the edge of the end of the member fitted with the groove joint, and similar for the front joint of the cabinet maker has been in variations. Dado joints are actually groove joints with the grooving running across the grain wood, but they are extensively cabinet working drawer construction. The dado housing groove and cut into the one member, the other member, the fitting with the groove of the plane. Dado is one with the complete across of the board. And C, Figure 3a with the groove of the dado is not extended completely, and it is cross illustrated in Figure 3b with its own with the soft and bind or dado. The shoulder dado is Figure 3c, differs from the plain dado regard of the horizontal limit of the rabbited fit the dado, the counter strain dado joint could be dovetailed shown in Figure 3d, and dovetailed dado joints constructed of the blind stop dado style. Figure 1 shows the plain dado, Figure B shows the stop dado, and Figure EC shows the shoulder dado, Figure D shows the dovetailed dado. Alright, 214 groove joints, rabbit, plain, tongue. Alright, groove joints have the groove of the plow, with the sometimes running with the grain with the wood. They're extremely sensibly panel construction. Figure 4 with the illustrated 3 methods with the member to illustrate with the fit of the groove. Groove joints can be plain with the cut with the rabbit tongue, which can be joined with it, and either with a glue or nail with it. However, the panel, the insert of the surrounding with the frame. The panel may be fitted with a snug with a not glue with the nail that allows the panel to swell and to shrink without breaking the frame. With the groove joints that can be cut with a circular saw with the dado head. Miter joints. The miter joints are diagonal joints with the extension of the frame of the whole thing shown in Figure 5. The A with the plain miter joint, which can be fastened with glue, the dowels, wood screw, the nails, corrugated fasteners. The 216 miter half lap joint is similar to the end lap joint that can be mitered to any desired angle. The type of the joint with is fastened within the glue, the nails, wood screw combination with glue and metal fasteners. Spline miters and that method for the reinforcement. Figure 5A shows the plain miter joint. Figure B shows the mitered half lap, and Figure C shows the spline miter. Figure 6 shows the open mortise tenon joints. Plain mortar joints shown in Figure 5C with the one of the way inserting the spline into the miter joint. The miter joint with the spline usually fashioned only with the glue with the joints of the type of which the hand tools must have each with the piece marked out with the proper however machinery is used, but then only the one layout necessary to set the machine. Mortise and tenon joints. Mortise and tenon joints belong to the oldest, most used with the cabinet of the construction. Numerous variations have with the joints provided with the ample choice of the framing, doors, panel, the tables, chairs, cabinets. One of the variations we will discuss is we will discuss 4 open, thorough, blind, and haunch mortises, tenon joints. Open mortises and tenon joints. The joints are sometimes called slip joints, illustrated in Figure 6. With show that you can see with the mortises completely through the end of the piece, which one of the 3 sides of the tenon is slipped in from one of the mortise shrunk with the joint. It can be used with various types of frames. This type of the mortise tenon can be nailed and screwed to be pegged and glued to add to strength with any version of the type of the joint with the brittle joint and illustrated in Figure 7. However, the version with one of them are joined with the center through the mortise tenon joints. These Figure 7 shows the brittle mortise tenon joints. Joints are two of those which the mortise extends completely through the one end member with the wedge for the driven and the end of the tenon is called with the wedge for the mortise of the tenon joint. Illustrated in Figure 9 for the Figure 8 shows the thorough mortise tendon joints, cheek, shoulder, and thorough. Figure 9, called wedge joints and tendon joints, illustrated in Figure 9. For the rough knockdown outside furniture, tendon can be cut longer with the depth of the mortise for the hole of the drill with the protruding part of the tendon wedge driven close over the outer face of the member with the mortise cut into it. Whether this is done with the keyed mortise and tendon joints. Blind mortise and tendon joints, these are joints in which mortise and tendons do not go completely through the mortise member that is shown with the Figure 11 that you have the doors and table legs, rails, panels which are designed not to part with the mortise for the tendon seat, but seen after the work is assembled. Haunch, mortise, and tendon joints. These joints are used with the groove and cut with the frame with the when mortise of the tendon will fit. With the Figure 12, shows the tendon cut with the fit within groove with the after the tendon is illustrated in the mortise. They are also used often in the framework with the grooves and cut with the for panels. To attain, when making mortise or tendon joints, make sure the tendon has at least one shoulder where the greatest strength is anticipated with the additional strength of the wide socket provided double. It shows the wedge tendon joint. Okay, Figure 10 shows the key mortise tendon joint and mortise tendon joints, and eliminates the spring tendon with the give it the shoulder with the rest against the side with the raised strap before starting any mortise for the tendon joints. Be sure that the socket is square. Determine the proper thickness of the tendon compared with the member of which the part of the thickness should be approximately 1/3 of the thickness of the member. Tendon should be fit with the single not bulge inside of the mortise and have the driven into it. 219. The dovetail joints. One of the strongest nerves at the joint of the cabinet with the dovetail joint for the center of the corner cut with the dovetail is considered the mark with a good workmanship with a good fit and only will be achieved by accurate painstaking labor. A single dovetail joints like the one shown in Figure 13, used with the drawing boards, tabletop drawers, etc. Finger and boxes, dovetail joints, also those with the square fingers and tails are shown. This shows the blind face and mortise tendon joints. Figure 12 shows the hunch tendon. Figure 14, humor box dovetail joints are which with the square fingers and tails are shown. Figure 14, they use the primary corner of small boxes. 220 with a few with the good rules. Let's go to Figure 14. Figure 13 shows single dovetail joints. Figure 14 shows the finger box dovetail joints, so we're going to go back up to read 220. There are a few good rules for the following of the dovetail joints. And softly the tails with the wire, they're deep at the hardwood, the face of the wire, widest for the part of the pins and figures should be at least 3/4 of the thickness for the wood. It is not feasible to try to explain each step of the laying out the fingers of the tails of each for the dovetail joint, but it does experience the patience to make them. Dovetail joints, similar to one of the shown with the Figure 15, dovetail joints are used extensively reinforced board with the glue edge for the outer side board butted together. Dowels are made of birch and standard diameter size range from 3/16 of an inch to 1 inch. When you make bore holes in the dowels, use the same size as the dowel. The side of the dowel will show be large enough to support the intended job, but no longer as such to weaken the wood grain rather than strengthen it. The diameter should be approximately 1/3 or to 1/2 the thickness of the stock of which being used. All holes must be bored straight so that the dove will not be forced into the bent position. And it's a good practice to cut the dowels 1/8 of an inch shorter than the combined depth of the hole to the point of the end of the coarse sandpaper. The knife dowel joints are usually glued and often used to substitute with the mortise and tendon joints to allow air with the excessive glue to escape cuts. The channels spiral the full length of each of the dowel. 223 corner joints. Corner joints, other than the miter butted and the dowel with the dovetail joints, are used with the extent of the construction drawer of the furniture cabinet. The corner joints, shown in Figure 16, of one member of the joint is rabbited with the other. The member that is fitted with the rabbit, fastened with the glue with the nails and screw with the combination with the glue and metal. Fastened with the box corner of the joint, shown in Figure 16, B, with the consist of the two members, one and dadu, and the other with the rabbited fit to the dadu. The corner is just primary. Figure 15 shows the dowel joints. Holes in the dowels were bored in the joint edge of the dowels are inserted. The holes are mainly used with the rear corner of the drawers mill with the center of the joint with the shown Figure 16C with the consist of the two of the members mills grove and fist together. This joint is used with the front corner of the drawer. They cover the resist of the pull exerted from the front of the drawer. Alright, 224. By now you have the good idea of both the wood use and type of the joints required for the construction article. With the information firmly in mind, but let's look at the recommended procedure for the construction wood in an article. 225. Butt joints. Butt joints consist of two members that fasten together end to end without overlap. The joints are strengthened with a strap or straps. 3. Construction wood in an article. You may probably remember the furniture of the grandmother's homes as you were younger. Today, the grandmother furniture will be considered old-fashioned as that. over grandparents to be designed with the styles continue with the change with modern day features of furniture designers to create furniture will give the convenience and comfort of beauty. Figure 16 shows a corner joint 32 along the many style of the chain of the production method of the material that have been chained with the cabinet perceived with however the basic form of the construction remain relatively same as they would so-called antiques were made today. However, there are more built-ins for the form of the cabinets, dressing, and table of work counters. The section will provide the knowledge will require the construct with the repair cabinets. It will also cover the type of the construction, which include the frame, style, and block for the procedure of the use of the section, the material items covered for the section. Also, extremely important they should be followed as closely as possible. 3-4. The last two major topics of the section are the assembling of the parts and complete units. In the final inspection of your finished work, obviously the knowledge and construction fundamental of which the material is selected and how it used it, and if it does not pierce the work piece of the work together with adequately carefully check with your completed article. Figure 17 shows frame construction, the panel free for the shrink and the strength in both length of the width of the frame. 3-5. You may have the opportunity to construct the cabinet and making them consist of the rebuilding damages. Remember to apply that you have learned produce the article that I would proud to say I made it. 3-6. Construction cabinets. Before you start construction cabinet, become familiar with all of the building details. Prepare the bill, submit material as you study with the drawing. You will find the article of the construction can be classified one of three forms of the cabinet construction. Regardless for the cabinet, making use of the three general frames, frame, stool, box, combination with them, three forms of this basis of the cabinet construction can be adapted to fit any design. However, the special method of being used to lubricate intrigue the shape of the desired. Figure 18 shows stool construction with the rails and posts. 3-7. Frame construction consists of the groove frame with the panel that fits into the groove of the framework. Adds the strength between the grain with the wood. Runs with lengthwise, both length with the width of the frame. Construction highly durable, desirable because it overcomes the shrinkage as well and provides the ample strength with the panel. Figure 17 illustrates simple to with the frame construction when used extensively with the cabinet construction of various joints. However, they can be used and fastened and framed together. 3-8. Stool construction. As shown figures 18 is the construction in regard with the floor of the frame put together to form the rectangular square used with the table, the chair, stands, mating tips of the cabinets, mortise, the tenon joints, dowel joints as well working the stool with the construction fitting of the type of the construction with the top of the, for example, the tabletop does not secure the top with glue with the cover. The wood shrinks across its width. The top of the must be able to give within shrinking. Figure 19 shows securing shoes, the top of the rail, the counterboard screw, and a metal fastener. Swelling process. Figure 19 illustrates the tabletop screw with the stool construction. They have the rails on top shrink the well. The top can move without splitting. 3-9. Box construction. Box construction with the articles made with a solid wooden chest and drawers, bookcase, and any type of the built without with the framework comes under the heavy. The box construction illustrated the one type of the box construction. When using the box construction method, use the rabbit butt and miter dovetail joints. 3-10. Selection of materials. Now that we have discussed the three forms of cabinet construction, let's be assumed that they have our drawing and we have checked all the details, have made all the bill of materials. After the assumption, select the materials needed. When selecting the material for the project, bear in mind where the articles will be used. Normally, would you not use the expensive of the trade material for the cabinet, which would use the tools. However, the article will finish for the bearing on the material will use if the article is to be painted, the material with the minor defects of the paint will cover. If the article is to have a clear finish, then use the better grade of the material. 3-11. After the material has been selected, you are ready to mill the stock and then form it in accordance with the blueprint. 3-12. Post legs and stool type construction support the article. The tool table chair stools are often milled decorative shapes using wood lathe. Refer to the blueprint side of the post and mill them the specified size and shape. 3-13. Fastening posts with the rails within the mortise and dowel joints. The mortise and tenon joints the mortise to each of the side of the rail with the other side of the receiver. The one tenon end of the rail. The dowel joints are used with the drill holes inside of the plate for the mortises when make the mortise dowel holes. Pair with the off the post and otherwise label them the right and left and right, and you do this to keep the both best sides of the face sides for the face side. The face sides are those which have been seen within articles assembled. 3-14. Rail, when assembled with the post of the square rectangular shape of the support with the post, the blueprint will give the dimension with the length with the width of the rail. The material selected with the mill the dimension using the joint with the plane with the table to cut off cells with the core cut with the rail length with the length of each for the tenon mortise and tenon joints used. Rails that are fitted on the panel shown in figure 21. You must have the groove cut and on the plane edge of each of the rail. 315 top sheet with the three forms of construction previously mentioned, most often large enough to require two or piece with a sack with glued together. The piece can be joined with glue using the type of the various type of the joints, tug, groove, dowel. When selecting material will be glued together, make the selection of each of the pieces with similar grain characteristics so that them, if the grain each of the piece of semblance with a matching. We repeat the method of fastening the top of the cabinet, making the furniture is important. Consideration becomes swelling of the shrinking of the top. Alright, in your job probably install laminated plastic surfaces of the especially cabinet top. These plastics are manufactured in sheath of rolls ready for the use, therefore they only have to do in them. Install them. Laminated plastics can also be different lengths, width, and thicknesses. When you install material, select the near side of the sheet with a roll of the size you need for the particular job. Select for the correct size of the bead, and be sure that the bowl surface of the bonding is smooth and clean and dry. When opening the contact cement container, read the instruction of the container file, then religiously because the contents of the container are extremely flammable, harmful, fatal if swallowed. Shake the content of the cement into the container vigorously before using. You open the container and use using a short fibered. Figure 321 shows rails fitted with the panels. Figure G22 shows the dadu mortise box construction and fitted with the painted roll of the wide brush spread over the contact cement with the laminated plastic top on the surface with it going to apply plastic. One full coat is usually enough to non-porous surface of black or laminated. Materials are metal with a porous surface such with wood usually requires two coats. When you use more than one content, will allow them to dry thoroughly between the coats. Be sure to allow the contact cement to dry. Then you bound the laminated plastic top. Position the surface carefully, because no adjustment is possible after the contact cement. Make the contacts use the screen plastic, thin wood, metal sheath, the screen wire with some other material separate with the separate contact cement films. Position large piece of laminated plastic. Pressure immediately firmly with a 3-inch wide roller or rubber face hammer working through the center of the edge of the entire surface. The only monetary pressure for the knee, but more pressure apply to limit to the bonded material. When the strong bond will be trimmed and finished with a router. As soon as the end plated with the bonding of the process, you will knock the sharp edge off of the file if needed. 317. Side end of the backs can be constructed with the frame stool box construction. Combination of all three. The combination of the frame and stool construction side with the wood panel illustrated in figure 221 requires the upper, lower, and rail with a groove cut with the rails in post. The type of the construction used primarily for the desk. The plywood for the use of the panels should have the best side out with appearance sake. Same apply with the rails and post. You be sure to cut the square with the remove the rough with the edge of around the panel. Smooth edge will help the panel slide with the groove easily. The groove must be large enough to panel slide into the which without it being driven. 318. In box construction sides, the end of the usually solid, similar to the top. The articles show the dresser chest. The drawers usually have the pieces that make up the ends. The single sides glued to make it wide enough to take the drawer for the correct dimensions. Allow a little extra so that it can mill the side of the ends for the 3 dimension after the piece has been glued together. The type of the construction solid side of the area rabbited back edge with the receive the back with a usually piece of the ply with the rabbit is covered after the stack has been milled with the specified size. The interior side may also be dadus and mortise cut to the receive the drawers rails shown in figure 22. They are cut the correct size and depth after the milling process. The frame type construction side end of the backs of the figure 23 made with assembling the various panels together according to your drawing. When you form the rails various parts, keep the best size out for the rails and panels cut. Figure 23 shows the panel for the frame construction. For the panel square with the removal of the rough edge, be sure that the groove is large enough to receive the panel. 320. Doors used with the cabinet furniture can be classified in panel of the flesh. The flesh doors usually made solid with the frame covered with the plywood in the frame of the panel door, mortise and the retaining with the dowel, lapped and miter. Your drawing will give you these details. The material of the framework is made of metal to the dimension specified with your drawing. After the millings process, the rails and stiles are cut at the length. The material framework is milled within the dimension side with your drawing. The milling of the process is rails and stiles are cut to the length. The joints should be used made along with the groove in each of the rails still for the edge of the panel. Some of the molding is covered the inside edge of the frame near the panel. Before the cutting the molding, select the best side of the frame to show the white when the doors are closed. If any of the joints other than the miter joints used, the molding must be mitered. As shown in figure 24, the hinge side of the door should be plain true with the top of the bottom, and the lock side with the showing the slight angle of the provided clearance. For opening, when you fit the doors, remove the waste from the equal from the all style of the rails so their width will be stay balanced. Figure 321 flush doors must be, for most cabinet boards, are solid and are cut with the specified dimensions shown on your drawing, making sure the top and bottom hinges are true. 322, regardless of the type of the drawer, the material selected for the tray and have a good grain characteristic. The material of the door must be glued matched with the grain characteristics when you mill out the material for the more than one door, especially for the double doors, do it all at one time. 323. If the articles have more make has drawers, there will be usually detailed drawing with a drawing construction along with the blueprint. Check with the plan for the thickness and width of the side and the front and the back of each of the drawer. Then mill the stack of these dimensions. When you start cutting the drawers with the marker with the piece of the side, fronts, backs, and with the side piece for the left and front, right. So the reason from this is that the bottom of the most drawers are inserted into the grooves cut on the inside of each side, front and the back piece for the drawer. This is clearly illustrated in Figure 25. Plywood use the bottom of the drawer should have the good side up, and so they can be seen when the drawer is open. It is essentially with all the material cut square if the drawer doesn't fit well. Wood used inside with the back piece can have slight defects, however they must be placed so that they cannot be seen inside where the drawer is open. Material is from the drawer fronts. 24 shows the molding of the panel door. Figure 25 shows the detailed drawer and construction. False front. Grooved from the bottom of the center of the back. Should the pleasing of the grain that may be the warm of the draw, you the grain characteristics should be similar with each of the front with the true clear finish of the important with the articles will be painted drawing may scale with the may cut with the fall front of the drawer if the material should be carefully selected with the mill to the dimensions specified. 324. We have to discuss various parts we will have to mill any one of the projects before you have the assembly before you begin the assembly of the pans into the units. Each of the part with remove the tool marks of their other blemishes. The greater portion of the sanding should be completed before paint parts are assembled. Then after the article is assembled, it needs only touch-up sanding to have it ready for the finish. 325. Always sand with the grain, never across it, and we will mar the surface with the wood with scratches. Figure 26A with the illustrate with the correct direction with the sand blocks should be moved with the sanding by hand. The other three parts of the figure 26 show the incorrect use of sand. Motion, sanding flat surfaces instead of using long, even strokes. 326. If the parts are articled, making have an irregular curve, then the spindle part with the disc and spindle sander. However, if the sander is not available, the curve the long sand in hand, but with the block. Block guards are against the round edge of the sand inside with the curve by the hands using the stick with the round surface of the figure 327. 327 for all lathe turns, such as the points post over the table stools of the rung out with the chair, making sure that each of the turning is carefully sanded and smooth surface before you begin in assembly. Figure 26 shows the direction of the sand block A, B, and C and D. Figure 27 shows sanding curves of 23, 28, assembling assuming that all the individual parts have been sanded, that you begin with the first step of the assembling unit as article in the unit. 329. Assembling the parts in the unit. Assembling the parts in the unit done after all the pieces have been milled in size and shaped and sanded. Before you assemble the unit with the final form, make sure pre-assembly check. Make sure that all the pieces are ready to be assembled and check that each of the pieces, dimension, shape, and the fit. 330. Dimension are checked first to see that they correspond with those of the drawing. Each dimension must be exactly long, width, wide, and thickness of the drawing specifies. 331. Check the size and shapes of the tri-square and the T-bevel, making sure that all the angles are correct. A. Board may be specified dimension, but if the angles are not properly measured according to the drawing, proper shape, they cannot be achieved. Check with the work with the actual fitting of the one piece with the counterpart after all the boards can be correctly dimensioned, shaped, and still not fit properly. Obviously, then the three-dimensional shape of the fit may be pre-assembled to form. This habit will be enabled to eliminate disappointment, save trouble, and time and effort material. 33. Final inspection. After the article has been assumed assembled, the glue has been given the time to dry. The final check with the before applying the finish of the check will include 1. All angles, the proper cut and fit. 2. All the excessive glue. 3. The entire surface of the blemish. 334. So far we have covered some of the wood used in the cabinet work along with the type of the joints used. We have also covered the procedures used to construct the wood article. However, the carpentry specialist who will require the repair, replace parts of sections of the cabinet. If you remember how to select the materials construction of the article, you should have any of the should not have any of the trouble selecting materials, repairing, and placing selections. Some of the items check with the kind of the wood grain character that is in the piece of the being replaced with having some of the grain textures of the original color shall be same. You may also construct the models and mock up the patterns. These items will require a great deal of time and skill to construct. For the reason the detailed drawings for the furniture aid your construction, these items are usually fastened together with screws and dowel pins or glue. The method of fastening these items together will be shown on the particular drawing you will be using. Alright, I guess that was actually Chapter 2, prefabricated buildings. We're going to cut the tape, and this is the part 2, actually. Chapter 2.